Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO live stream. Today is supposed to be open lines and still is, but because the last few times some of you have been very shy, I made sure to actually have a friend of mine. His name is Michael Babcock, and he's a wealth of information. And we'll be covering a variety of subjects, and I'm very excited to talk to him about those. But if you decide to join us, please join the Telegram group that's going on right now as well. And it's actually voice only, and it's, I think, delayed a little bit, so you might have to choose between watching or being on Telegram. But it's when you join that voice chat, that's when you can raise your hand and I can bring you in to either share your story when it's your time, or maybe even ask a question of Michael. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. I didn't check that with him beforehand, but we'll work it out. And so basically, also wanted to cover real quick, it's raining cats and dogs here. So there's very strong wind, and I'm not sure, sometimes it's actually known to have some power interruptions or the internet going down. So if that ever happens, one or the other, then you'll know why. And I didn't want to skip over today because I wanted to kind of establish every Wednesday at 7 to always have something for you all. So anyway, let's roll with it, and we'll see what happens. So anyway, you can always still ask questions. I'm sure most of you will chat with each other. Right now, the stream is going live on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. If there's a question directed towards me or Michael, please make sure to include an asterisk or 3 asterisks before your question, so that way it'll pop out at me and I know it's meant for me and not the regular chat room chatter. So, okay. So anyway, the link for Telegram is actually in the description below this video, and also on Facebook and Twitch. And basically, once you join Telegram, you can install it on your phone or on your computer. And while Michael and I are chatting, they'll give you enough time to actually install it and join us if you're interested. So I think I've covered everything. And let me unmute this here. And Michael, thanks for being on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Good evening, Ed.
Well, welcome, Michael. I'm glad you're able to do this today with me. And we did talk about, was it over a year ago, I believe? But I'm glad you're back. And I basically just want to open the floor and, fire away.
Okay. So you want to talk about UFOs now?
Yeah. Share your stories, whatever you have, whether it's an experience or whatever you had planned.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about the experience I had when I was 9 years old, but I also wanted to talk about some dowsing, because I've been dowsing for about 22 years, and I think it would be something everybody would be interested in. But first, I'll relate a story that I experienced when I was 9. I'm a part of a family that there were 8 kids, and it was about 1965, and we're at a drive-in theater. Drive-in theater, for a lot of you who've never probably seen one, is an outdoor movie theater where you stay in your car and you drive up and you can put a speaker on your window and you have this huge screen in front of you. You can watch a movie. So I'm in a car. I'm in this station wagon, and I've got 2 sisters on my right and 1 sister on my left. I'm in the middle, and we're all crunched in watching this movie that none of us are interested in. And most of the kids in the car are falling asleep. And then my mom goes, "Oh my God, what is that?" And I thought, all right, the movie's getting interesting, right? And I go, what? She goes, no, above the screen. And there were these 2 glowing orbs, not 2, excuse me, 3 glowing orbs. And it looked like they were like, when you would see like a ball or something floating on water, they were floating like that. And they were really bright, and I would say they were probably, from where I was sitting, the perspective, I would say they were probably 6 inches in diameter. And then they were just floating, and then all of a sudden they stopped and they kind of like locked, and they all started to move together in a sequence, and they were rotating around, spinning around each other. And then the police pulled up in front of the drive-in theater, and the drive-in theater has all this pea gravel on the ground. And when they stopped, all this dust came around the screen, and I'm trying to get out of the car. I want to see better. So I open the door and I slide over my sister and land on the ground. and this pea gravel, and I'm picking this pea gravel out of my hands while I'm looking at these three objects in the sky. It's like some kind of orchestrated event. I mean, the way they moved in such a, I guess, a coordinated way with each other. And the police were there, and you can see the red lights reflecting off of other buildings. And all of a sudden they stopped. And then they turned, like, I guess they were facing us, their disc side towards us. And then when they like flattened out, and you could still see them, and they looked like saucers. And they all three together darted off to the northwest and disappeared. And I'm like, whoa, this was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. I mean, it was, I never was interested in that sort of thing. And then this occurred. Well, I get back in the car, and my mom starts saying, well, those are UFOs. And I go, what's that? She goes, well, those are spaceships from other planets. And I go, really? No, she says, really, those are spaceships that come from other planets, and there's people in there, and they're curious. I go, wow. I was so excited, I didn't even want to watch the movie. I wanted to talk about this, Well, that kind of faded. And most of the kids in the car they slept through the whole thing. But outside, man, people got out of their cars. They're still talking. There's groups of people forming, and they're all talking. And I'm sitting there in the seat where I was. Now this time I'm next to the door. I pushed my sister over. And I guess about a half hour passed, and all of a sudden, from behind us, it was like a big floodlight was flying over the theater, and it was so bright that it like flooded out the picture on the TV or on the motion picture screen. And I look out the back window, and I could see two more of them flying from behind us in formation. And the first one came up, and it went like it turned up on its side, so you could see like a disc. And the second one came, and it turned up, and the third one, and they floated. They locked. They did that same formation thing, and then they flew off. And it was like, wow. I mean, when they came over the second time, Adnan, they were so bright. I mean, it was like daylight. They had such a bright light underneath them. And then after that happened, this was really strange. It was like I understood like what these crafts were, and I understood that I had some kind of understanding. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm 9 years old, and I know they have like two drive systems in them. They use one to jump, great distances, and they use another one like when they're within a solar system for the smaller distances that they would travel, or they travel in the atmosphere. I knew how the drives were built. I knew where the first drive was, the second drive. I don't even know how I knew all this. It was just coming to me. And so I started drawing pictures. I had this like 3-ring binder, and I'm drawing all these pictures of the craft, of what it looks like, where the drives are, where the occupants would sit, and the control panels. And I'm 9 years old. I don't know I don't know where I knew all this, right? So now I'd be going to school, be sitting on the school bus, and I'm sitting by myself, and somebody sat in the seat next to me. I go, do you know what a UFO is? And they look at me like, no. When we saw them at the drive-in, and I take my notebook out, and I start showing it to them and talking to them about the drive system, it got to the point where nobody wanted to sit next to me because I was so enthused about this. And I would like have dreams. I would dream about these. I could see massive fleets of them. And I knew that they weren't on their own, that there was a bigger ship that they would hook up with and dock with. And so this was something that I lived with for quite some time. And I was always wondering about, well, where did they come from? Who are they? Are they friendly? That sort of thing. And but I never came across anybody that had a similar experience to that. I was around other UFO groups later in my life, in my 20s and 30s, but I never came across anybody that had that experience. And I had emailed a good friend of mine about this event that we're doing tonight and told him about it. And he sent me a link, an Amazon link, to a guy that has a book out called UFOs at drive-in theaters. And it's by a guy named Preston Dennett, Dennett. You can find that on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle or paperback. I haven't read it yet, but he was telling me that he goes, wow, he goes, there's a lot of people that have had similar experiences to that. So that was the first time I've ever heard about that. So that was my experience with the UFOs. And then shortly afterwards, I started becoming very interested in spiritual development. And actually all the kids in our family started getting this interest in spiritually developing ourselves, and not necessarily being attached to a church, but doing things like we were reading books by, what was his name? A great psychic, Edgar Casey.
Yep.
And mom was promoting this and helping us with this. And it was just, I guess, the beginning of the journey that I've been on for the remainder of my life up to this point.
Well, that's actually, pretty cool from your mom's end to actually just be, that matter of factual, to just say, yeah, this is who they are. And even if she didn't know 100% sure, on your own through experiences or whatnot, just to be that open-minded, especially at that time. I'm not saying how old you are, what decades we're talking about while you were 9, but still, I don't know, my parents still, if it's not in the newspaper, it's not real.
Yeah. My mom gave me, after that experience, she gave me 3 books by George Adamski. I don't know if you're familiar with him. It was spaceships have landed inside the spaceships, and I forgot what the third one was. Man, I just gobbled that all up. And then later in life, I came across, what was it? His name, Meyer in Switzerland.
Michael Meyer?
And no, not Michael.
Not Michael.
What's his name? He has one arm.
Right. Actually, isn't that Michael Meyer?
No.
Or Mike? Yeah. Let me see.
But he's in Switzerland, and he was making contacts with the Pleiadians.
Right. I'm probably saying the wrong. Billy Meyer. Yep. That's right. Billy the Kid. Yeah, it wasn't a tractor accident that he had. That's how he lost his arm. Yeah, he had a very interesting life. If you just read up his story, he was traveling everywhere, just all kinds of odd jobs and things that, I don't know, I guess if you're just that kind of soul traveling around, that's what I guess you end up doing and add to your life's resume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he spent some time in a ashram in India, and so and he related his experience there, where they saw on a regular basis a lot of ships visited the ashram in the sky, kind of like what up there in Washington they do at that ranch up there. What's the guy's name? I've seen him a couple of times, but he has a ranch. I think it's in Washington or Oregon, and you can go there and there's ships appear in the sky all the time up there.
Does he have a beard, long hair?
Isetti. Yeah, Isetti. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I guess you and I both are kind of out of it. It's usually I'm really quick with these things. I actually have his picture in my head. We with Ozark, we tried reaching out to invite him to be one of the speakers, but he never answered. So I just left it at that. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I really don't connect with a lot of any UFO group, actually. To me, it's a settled issue. Yeah, they're there, and I don't really go along with Green, but he says they're all it's kumbaya, they're all good. No, my experience has been there's evil ones and there's good ones. There's good ETs, there's evil ETs. And right now, I really believe the Earth is being influenced greatly by evil ETs, but also there are good ETs that are influencing us to stand up to this and to eradicate it ourselves, because there is, James Gillian. There is no one going to come and save us. It's us. If we don't do it, it ain't going to happen. But if we do it, I think we've got a great chance of being a part of the greater community that we live in this universe.
Right.
And
You know, I'm sorry
fantastic
to interrupt. I wanted to
technology.
ask you something real quick because I know you and I, we go way back still during the St. Louis times when I still lived there. And we actually met. I don't know which one of those meetings. Was it at the bowling alley? But anyway, the point I'm trying to
Yeah.
make is, you know, a lot. I know when it comes to the field, and I've been around a lot of people that are into UFOs, and there's very, very few are actually just looking for some kind of savior. And those are the ones who I'd say what you are pretty much saying is it's us. We've got to do our part. Others actually, I don't know. I've just always found it that the messages given are great messages to follow and kind of, as I always say in the new age community, raise your vibrations, which to most people don't mean squat, you know. But I always found that, you know, the information given through channeling was, you know, it's very helpful if you follow up on it, you know. And yeah, it's like I don't know. When it comes to a lot of people out there that are in the field, they're either researching or they're either been experiencers, but you know, I don't find them that prevalent really anymore. Maybe in the very beginning, like 15 years ago, where they're like, oh, they're coming to save us. They'll give us technology and fix our problems, you know. But it seems like either those people have stopped going to meetings, you know, or they just understood a different thing about them now. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, Adnan, there was a TV series that came out in the '70s called V, and then
Yeah,
they
I
did a
know of it.
remake on it in the '90s, and it was about these aliens that showed up one day in the sky, and they were going to be our saviors. Oh, they had medical technology and all kinds of technology, but their motive was they were going to take over the earth and rape it of its resources. I
Hmm.
look at it like that. If anybody comes with in a ship and says that they're here to help us and give us this technology, I guarantee you there's going to be strings attached to it.
Right.
And I agree with you. It's up to us. We are the ones that have to make the change. And when we make the change, it'll be a natural progression to come to meet up with the ETs that are benevolent. Just like in your life, if you have, however you hold in your mind your thoughts, those are the type of people and experiences that you're going to attract to yourself. Same thing. If you're looking for a savior, believe me, there's plenty of them in line that'll be glad to step up for you. But like I said, the strings attached isn't going to be what you are really going to want.
Right. So, were there any, regarding your story, did you see those ships ever again later on in life, or was that pretty much the only time that you have a memory of?
That was the only time that I've seen ships like that. When I was living in the house before I'm living in right now, which was kind of out in the country, not quite like you were when you were out in, what was that, Pacific, Missouri?
Robertsville?
Robertsville, yes.
Yep.
That was really dark. I mean, where you lived, if you turned the lights out, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I
Yep.
lived out in an area, it was not quite that dark. And it was a nice evening. It was a summer or spring evening. I'm sitting out on my in my front yard, and it was a beautiful night. I mean, the stars were just brilliant. And I started noticing like stars were missing, and then they would disappear, and they would come. And if you kind of saw the outline, it was like a big triangle, and it was just circling, just at a big circle towards the horizon. And I doused it, and it was an Earthcraft. It's one of those whatever TR-3Bs is
Right.
what it was, because at that time I was pretty close to Scott Air Force Base,
Hmm.
and they were having sites over there in Illinois at Scott, and I thought, wow! And if this is a TR-3B, it was huge. It was large. And there was another time, about 2 years ago, right where I'm at, and I was listening to Penny Kelly.
Yeah.
And so one evening I thought, okay, I'm going to do what Penny Kelly said. And I kind of put it out there psychically. I said, I think it was directed towards Valiant Thor and his people. And I doused it. I doused it first. And yes, Valiant Thor is real. and there are people that he's a part of, and they do live on Venus. And so I just put it out to him psychically. I said, look, I'm willing to work with you guys. If there's something that I can do to contribute, I'd be glad to contribute. Just, let me know. I mean, give me a sign, let me know. And I dropped it. And I just let it go. And about 3 weeks later, I was watching our neighbor's dog. They were on vacation. So I went over there about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I let them out in the yard. And it was a beautiful night. I'm just sitting out there, and I see this. It looked like a star, but it was a little bit bigger than a star. And it was cruising real slow overhead. And I directed my thought to it, and I said, look, if you are benevolent, then just stop. And it stopped. It's like, oh, I said, holy crap. I'm going, okay. And if you're benevolent, I said, if you are part of Valiant Thor and their group, then, I uphold my word that if you want me to work with you, I'll work with you. And it just stayed there. I hovered, and then it just slowly moved on. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not a coincidence. That was an event. And nothing has come of it since. But I think Penny Kelly says it is they check you out for a while. They want to see where you're coming from, what you're about, and they'll contact you usually through dreams and thoughts and things like that. So I haven't had any other experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting. You say that, not a lot of people have been over where I used to live in Robertsville, Missouri, where all my experiences were happening. But when I tell them I lived in the boonies, unless you've been there, you would not, they just think people exaggerate when they say, oh, you live out, out there somewhere, whatever, but technically you're like right next to the highway. No, I mean, it's nice to have one other person that can confirm, like, no, I was out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was dark too. I mean, Adnan, it was dark. Yeah,
Yep,
you
I
turned the
remember.
lights out, and then we're all out there with flash cameras taking pictures, and there it is,
Right.
orbs all
Oh,
over the place.
right. Well, why don't you tell a little bit more about that? What was
Okay.
basically, so let me just preface it real quick. So I don't remember exactly how this happened, but one of the groups I was basically part of, and you were there too, and then I just put out, generally, I didn't want to invite too many people, but I wanted to people that I personally liked. I know it's so selfish of me, but it's like, to me, my home was so, it's a holy ground. It's like, so only only people that I really agree with, I would like them there. I don't, just didn't want to invite strangers that I don't know and all of that. Just wanted to enjoy just a nice evening with friends. But of course, like with everything else, I don't know that this was planned. I just knew like people were coming over, and the next thing you know, it always has to turn, metaphysical. And so anyway, with everyone there, go ahead, continue the story.
Well, I think most of the people that you invited were dowsers. We doused, and we're having dinner. We're all sitting around we're talking, and Sandra, she that's her thing is orbs, and she got to talking about it. Well, we all had our phones and that. So after dinner, we all go outside, and you turn the light off, and man, I mean, I didn't dare take a step, man. I couldn't see anything, and all you see all these flashes. Everybody's we're pointing our cameras towards the woods, and we're pointing them towards the house everywhere and taking pictures. And then you turn the lights on, we go back inside, and sure enough, there's these orbs all over the place. Sandra had the most. I think I had one or two. Everybody had like one or two, but Sandra had a bunch of them. But see, she's been working with this for a long time, and she has them. Apparently, they attract to her. They follow her around or whatever. And at her house, she showed me pictures of them, and she even had one that kind of looked like a butterfly in the tree. It was pitch black, but you could see it was on a limb, and it looked like a little butterfly. And it's like, wow, this is very uncanny.
Well, if
And
I may add something real quick here, especially so for those that are aware about what orbs are, it's generally just a camera capturing these different orbs of energy that is generally not, we can't see with our own eyes. And so a lot of times I always had the argument for people, it's like, oh, you're out there, it's dust, and the flash happens to catch a little dust particle that reflected the light, and that's what you captured, right? And when that's the case, that would be the case. But with these, they were so intricate too, because it would be, let's say a circle, the size of half a human length, but like behind a person, and then others
Mhm.
are in front, and it's like, and so how does that happen? It's like, how do you reflect a dust particle behind a person, but reflecting it in like a 3 foot diameter, for example? So anyway, I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that part. That's what got me very interested, because generally whatever people want to do, I'll leave it be. But when she was talking about orbs, it wasn't necessarily my interest at that time. But after she took some of those photos and brought in whatever she brought in, I was hooked after that.
Yeah. 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 And after that experience, Adnan, because I'm a real estate broker and I'm an investor, and I invest in properties and I manage properties. I had a guy that said, "Hey, would you manage my property up in Florissant, Missouri?" I think you know where that is, up by the
Yeah,
airport.
yeah.
I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I went over there, and well, first of all, I got a tenant in there. I put a tenant in, and single mom, 3 kids, nice gal. And in 6 months, I get a call from her ex-husband, says, "I got to get my wife out of there. She's like raving, screaming, crazy, whatever." I go, "Wow, okay." I said, "I don't have any problem. We'll break the lease, no problem." So I go over there and I take pictures because I'm going to put it on Craigslist as a rental. I get home, I look at my pictures. There are so many orbs. It looks like fog. And so I call my friend, one of the people in the dowsing club, and I shared it with her. And we're dowsing it, and we come up with that these were Native Americans that were caught in a crossfire battle during the Civil War. And for them, it was only a few moments that had passed. And they were frightened. They were confused. And so what we did was we doused it, and we asked the divine to give them whatever help, aid, and assistance they needed to move on. So the next day, I go over there and on same camera, same everything, went to the same locations in the house, took the same pictures, nothing,
Mm.
zero, zip, nada. So I'm from that day forward, I was like, I'm totally convinced that these digital cameras can pick up stuff. But I found out that was probably about 12 or 13 years ago. But I found out that people were talking about this, and so Apple, quote unquote, they fixed their cameras so that it doesn't happen anymore. So
Mm.
I can't say that I don't have the newest Apple camera or the newest Apple phone, but
Right.
I still have my original my iPhone that I shot the orbs on. I haven't tried shooting it since,
Right.
but I do know there's something to it.
Well, Michael, since you brought up dowsing a few times, can you please just go ahead and describe for everyone what dowsing is and
Oh,
how the process works on all of that? I figured it'll be a good time to get into it. But I would like to ask you a question real quick from Labels that's watching right now, before we move on with the next subject.
mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Labels is asking, your opening story about siding in a drive-in was interesting. Was your mother so nonchalant because she had experiences? Most people back then wouldn't respond in the way that you described.
Well, my mom, I don't know if you guys remember this, if anybody ever knows about this. There was a magazine called Fate magazine, and it was kind of like they had all kinds of stories in it about UFOs and paranormal and all that. And she read that from the time I could ever remember. So she was interested in this. And then, of course, she had the George Adamski books. And so after this experience, she was a little bit more open about it with us. But before that, she would mention things, but not really, I guess she was just testing the waters to see how responsive we were to it. And after that experience, because it was myself, my mother, and my stepfather, and I think one of my other sisters woke up. I'm not sure which one, but after that, we talked about it quite a bit amongst ourselves, more so.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. So yeah, please tell us about dowsing.
Okay. Well, I'll just kind of presume that nobody out there really knows anything about dowsing. Dowsing is a way of being able to connect with your divine self. I look at it as a physical feedback system that you establish a base of communication using. You can use a pendulum. I use dowsing rods. They're like just basically metal coat hangers that are shaped like a large L, and I put the short end in my hands, and they'll move back and forth. They'll crisscross back and forth, or they'll go straight out. And I established a protocol as to how we're going to communicate. Like, okay, when I first started, I physically crossed the dowsing rods over each other like an X, and I said, "This is my yes." And then I would put them completely out to the side, and I said, "This is my no." And then what I've done is on my right dowsing rod, I make that like a scale, like you would have a scale for an audio meter. And the left one is like the needle that moves across a scale on an audio meter. So at the tip, that would be 10 or 100, and all the way in would be like 0. And that way I can say things like, well, what would be the level of effect on my body if I took 100 milligrams of this vitamin C right now? And it could give me a level of effect, could be 0, or if it goes to the other way where the left rod stays straight out and the right one becomes the meter, those are all negative numbers. Rarely do I ever get negative numbers on anything, but I either get 0 or no sometimes. But that's how I establish a communication system with my divine self. And some people use a pendulum, and they'll have like a chart, like a circular chart, like a circle with concentric circles inside of it with numbers around them. And they'll hold the dowsing or a pendulum, and it'll swing back and forth, or they'll ask a question, and it will start swinging towards a side of that chart, and it would be an answer. I've even seen charts where if you're going to douse problems for your car, and it'll say transmission or it'll say computer or whatever, and it'll swing towards those things. If you ask, what's the problem with my car right now? And it might swing over towards computer. And then you can start digging deeper as well, what's the problem with that? So that's a system of communicating with your divine self and getting a physical feedback. And the same thing with tarot cards, rune stones, all that is a way of establishing a communication system with your divine self. Now, the caveat here is you must establish your authority. In other words, when I first started doing this, I learned this from Walt Woods. And Walt Woods is the granddaddy dowsing of our current dowsing. I guess dowsing in our current time. And he wrote a book called Letter to Robin, and you can look this up on the internet. Put in Walt Woods Letter to Robin. It'll be the first thing that'll pop up. Download it. It's a PDF. And what he does is he if you follow his procedure, it establishes a protocol as to who and what you are communicating with. Because when you start delving into dowsing or tarot cards or anything like this, there's so much crap in the astral plane that will come in and jack with you and play like they're God or whatever. You don't want that. You don't want to deal with, quote, angels. You don't want to deal with anything but the divine. You don't need to deal with angels, spirit guides, none of this. My experience has been that those are pardon?
Nope, I'm sorry. I just had a little feedback. I apologize. Go on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my experience has been those things are what I call archons. They are beings that kind of straddle our reality and their reality, and they've been around for a very long time, and they jack with people. It'll usually go to your demise. But I strictly stay with the divine, and I learn to communicate with the divine. But some people say that, like, well, I don't respect the divine because of the way I teach this dowsing. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I may see something in the news about somebody that had something happen to them that was very debilitating. Maybe they were in a car accident. So I would get out my dowsing rods and I would say, divine, this person right here I'm looking at on the internet, they were in a car accident. I want you to heal them from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet, that they totally recover as if nothing ever happened to them. I want you to do this now. Do what is necessary and appropriate for them now. So be it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you notice, there's no groveling here, and there's no telling the universe or the divine how to do it. You just put out what it is that you want and let it do what is appropriate. And while I'm doing this, I'm holding my dowsing rods, and my dowsing rods will typically be in the yes position constantly. And sometimes they'll bounce off my shoulders. They'll keep bouncing. Like I try to take it like I'm getting a high five on it or something, but it's just telling me you're doing this right. And I learned this because when I was a kid, I had this Bible that was called the Red Letter Bible. And it was all the words that quote Jesus in red letters. And so I learned that when he would go and heal somebody, he didn't grovel or tell the universe how to do it. Like an instance when Lazarus had been dead for 3 days, and Lazarus' family called for Jesus to come, and he had other things that he was doing. When he got there, the whole family was pissed. It's like, well, it's glad you showed up. I mean, glad you got around to coming to visit Lazarus. He's dead. He's been dead. We got him in the tomb. He's been there 3 days. And all he did was he turned and he says, Lazarus, come forth. And he did. And it's commanding the universe. It's commanding this energy to do as you command it to do. It's not an ego thing. It's who we are, our divinity within us. And I've developed this through the dowsing system. The dowsing system for me was a way that I could get a feedback immediately to know that I'm on the right track. And so I made a deal with the divine. I said, well, if there's people that need help or some situation that needs corrected, then bring it to my attention, and I will stop what I'm doing and I will do this. And it's amazing. It's been doing this. And and here's the amazing thing. I've done things like this, and I just let it go. I'm done, and I say, so be it. Make it so. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I let it go. And it might be 2 weeks later, and I get some news, and it's like that person that I had prayed for, I find out that they recovered. And so right there, I just stop what I'm doing and just say, thank you, divine. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this. And then I just go on. I move on to the next thing. And so the dowsing has helped me because it gives me that feedback that I need to know that I'm on the right track.
Well, also, I think, I forgot which one of the meetings it was, because there were, at least before I moved to Arkansas, there were like at least three meetings going on each month in St. Louis. And some of them were very, very hands-on, that building copper pyramids, doing all kinds of stuff that would actually like start testing some of these things we always only read about in the books. And I think one time, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, where they didn't show, okay, this is how you hold the rods, and this is what actually is a feedback versus you just shifting your body and then the rods moving on their own. because
Right.
there's a, when something specific happens, it's very clear. We're like, I didn't do anything. Why did it just, especially what got me is when they go both the opposite directions. The one
Mhm.
on the right goes right, the one on the left goes left, and it's like I didn't even move. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's always interesting to kind of get that feedback, because I think there's some people out there that are very enthusiastic about it, and they just get into, let's say, that subject, and then they get themselves in trouble because they don't spend the time to understand it more. So then it's easily debunked by just looking. It's like, hey, you're holding this wrong, or hey, your body posture is this way where it's bound to go the certain direction. You have to truly, be kind of this perfect vessel in a way, because then it actually reacts to the things you ask it to do. If you're, especially like, getting closer to one of the things, I think I was testing, like getting closer to an electrical outlet, and it was just nothing, and then opens up because that field is kind of kind of coming outwards from that outlet. And I guess that's how it registered to me that, okay, this, whatever it
Mhm.
was projecting, it's starting, at this point.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I we were having quite a few meetings in St. Louis, and I'm thinking about starting another group that meets monthly here in St. Louis. We have no dowsing groups right now that I know of. I've not seen any, but yes, one of the things that I really want to help people with is to formulate in their mind their thinking pattern, because with dowsing, the more accurate you are in the question that you ask is the more accurate the answer will be. The more vague you are or broad a question you ask, the broader the answer will be.
Mm.
And a lot of times you'll not see the result. Like, one of the things a lot of people may ask is, will I make more money this year? Well, that's a broad question. You would need to ask something more like, will I make at least 10% more income this year than I made last year? Now, that would be a question to ask. Now it's measurable. Another thing I found is, this is something that I use all the time. It's kind of like saying, will X happen in Y amount of time? In other words, would my friend James find a job within 6 months where he makes at least $3,000 a month? You see how that's a very specific question. And if I ask, what's the percentage of probability of James finding a job within 3 months or within 6 months making $3,000, it will give me a percentage of that probability. If what I found is anything below 70% probably will not happen. And anything 70 and above is a very good chance it will happen. Now, there were situations where I would ask the divines questions, and it was very low. And I would say, okay, divine, can you make this happen? Can you bring this up to at least, can you bring this up to 100%? And it will, and usually it will say yes. And then my next question is, will you do this if I ask you to do this? Yes. Okay. So then then divine, do whatever is necessary and appropriate to make the corrections so that this can be now brought to 100%. Make it so. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I'll douse it again, and I'll say, okay, what's the percentage? I'll go right to that same question, and it's amazing. And actually, if I keep the rods there, I'll start seeing it. The rods start going up until it hits a certain point, and sometimes it'll hit 100%, but a lot of times it'll get around 90, and it'll just stop. So that's what I do to take control of, I guess, the environment around me. So I don't feel like a victim to life. I feel like, I can ask the divine if it will change things and make it, and make the corrections, and not just for myself, but for other people, even people I don't even know. And so, but there was a couple of times, Adnan, where I asked the divine, will you heal this person? It said no. I'm like, whoa. I mean, that was pretty devastating for me. I mean, that was, it wasn't an ego thing. It hurt. It would be like, if I knew something was happening to you and I asked the divine to heal you and it said no, that would be, it would hurt because you're somebody that I know and care about. But so I started delving into it because I started getting these impressions of questions to ask, and it was like, oh, I'm getting involved with their karma. They have a thing that they have a path that they have to go through. And by me getting involved with it and putting this energy into it would disrupt the karma that they came to experience. So it's only happened a couple of times. But the second time it happened, it was not as devastating as the first time. But now I understand why it happens. It's not everything can be changed, but most things can. Most things can be changed, and you can do it through this. I call it a form of prayer. I'm praying, but I'm also getting feedback at the same time, so that I know I'm on track with the direction I'm taking the dowsing.
It's very interesting considering how far along dowsing came, because I remember it was always talked about farmers using dowsing to help them find water, on the farm, and where they're going to dig the next well and all that. So that was always pretty interesting. And then going from that to all the other applications that you had just mentioned. Just real quick, for those watching, so basically, if you would like to come on and just share your story, because that's what Open Lines is for. Join Telegram that's going on right now. You can install it on your phone or on the computer, and then you can join that group under the link that's in the description below. And so that way I'll have you on my list, and you can tap a little button that looks like a little person raising their hand, and that tells me that you would like to come on. And also, then the general point of Open Lines is I always have guests on that have either are famous or they've published some books, or and whatnot. And so people have their own stories to tell, like I do, and Michael has, and everyone else out there too. And so that's what, when I have Open Lines, that's the whole point of that. And so sometimes during Open Lines, people share about many other different subjects. It's not always just UFO related, because UFO Hub at this point, I've, covered Bigfoot, chupacabra, there've been, cryptids in general, ghosts, I mean, you name it, anything supernatural. And that's what the channel over the years has pretty much evolved to, because at the end of the day, you realize that everything is one. And so that is the general point of Open Lines today. So, Michael, I'm sorry, I just had to put that out there real quick. So no, were you going to add something to what I was saying about how far along dowsing has come?
Yeah, there's still people that they do believe that that dowsing is kind of a voodoo kind of a thing, but the more I studied it, the more I found that, like I said, it's just a way of it's a communication tool. That's all it is. But what I have experienced over the years now is, as I'm formulating the question in my mind, I'm already getting the answer, and I'm getting an impression. And if I'm holding the dowsing rods, I'll get this impression, and I'll look down, and the dowsing rods are already moving in the direction I have an impression of. And I'm getting flashes, like a daydream flash of images when I'm asking the question. So what I think it is, it's jump starting our intuition, our clairvoyant abilities, or whatever you want to call it, like Penny Kelly has. She can actually see and hear images and visions. So that's what I think it is. It's just the dowsing is just the training wheels for your consciousness to develop. It's just a means to an end. It ain't an end in itself.
Right.
And
actually, it was through doubt, because a lot of us, we always talk about spirits and spirit guides and all these different things that have been covered by many different people, not necessarily just on this channel. And a lot of us always go, oh, okay, that's cool. And then we just kind of keep living our lives without really taking that taking that seriously, right? And dowsing, especially when you have that kind of interaction, is more of a physical thing that you can see that there's something out there that you're interacting with. And so what's interesting, I took it, this was not that long after the meetings, and when I kind of became aware of dowsing, I kind of started like a similar thing, but I used, this is gonna sound weird, I kind of used my face. So what I'm gonna say about that is, so basically, if I'm about to do something and I'm not, fully aware of, like, maybe should I do it, should I not, and all these other things, and I trust that we have spirit guides around us, right? I keep, talking to people that say they are, having had the experiences that I have, and knowing that that's the case. It's like, why haven't I kind of engaged in a conversation in a way, not like talking to yourself, to where everyone else kind of looks at you like you're crazy, but going back to what I was saying, I would just, for example, a lot of times when I noticed that something was around me, I would just feel like a very strong tingle on the surface of my skin. It almost feel like little pricks of needles, And basically, then every time then I would about to do something, and I would like to have an interaction and get an answer, I would just kind of in my head say, should I be doing this right now? Should I, whatever. But it would be like a to come down to a yes or no type answer, and then I would say, basically just. Like basically tickle my right cheek, and then, or no for tickle my left cheek, and then basically soon after, maybe about 5 seconds, I would just feel like an intense, like something is just kind of taking like a electrical brush over my face. It would be one side or the other, and I would just be like, okay, and I would just move on. But I think it's important to understand is that we're here to live our own lives and make the decisions, and just basically whatever decisions ends up being, to just still stick with it, because it's no life either if you literally, I mean, I've literally known people is like, should I eat this salad, yes or no, and they try to do a pendulum, or should I do this, and they're like, everything they do is just pendulum. Like, should I go left on the highway? I'm like, are you kidding me now? It was just taking it too far, but important things for me, were quite literally like big things, like buying a house. And the way I even found out Robertsville house before, while I was looking, I must have looked at least 6-7 different houses, and same thing with coins, right? It's also a way to heads for yes, tails for no. And that's why a lot of times when we want to help decide, and my wife and I would do it all the time, because it's been always my habit, but when, where should we go and we can't decide, so we say, okay, heads for this restaurant, tails for that restaurant. But anyway, Robertsville house was the same thing. I found a house, and it was pretty good. I was already getting tired of looking, and I was kind of debating, like I was about to just put an offer on the house and just kind of stick with this. It's like, what's the point of keep going, And so anyway, so I just thought for a second. I said, should I go look at that next house? Would it be beneficial to me to look at the next house? Heads, yes, heads for yes, tails for no. And I flipped the coin, and sure enough, it fell on yes. I was like, all right, then I will do one more, and that's it. And sure enough, as I'm approaching the property, I was like, this is it. I know for a fact this is it, and so that wasn't a decision, because I was already pretty heavily set about just going with that house, because I was just tired. It's like, how many more are we going to be looking? It was dragging on for weeks too, going actually close to a month. And so those kind of things is what I'm talking about. Not quite literally every step of the way to, please tell me what to do type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I know what you mean. I've seen the same thing, and I do rely on guidance, and I get it's, to me, it's an impression. I feel an overall impression.
Yeah.
I know when I'm doing something, I'm going in the wrong direction, and I know when I'm going in the right direction. But I do, like you were saying, I do douse. I think I douse more for. Right now, I've been dowsing more for healing, for giving people the help, aid, and assistance that they need. That's what I've been. I guess I've been doing that for the past 3 years since this quote epidemic thing has come about. And but overall, I could say that I feel more confident in relying on the divinity within to guide me. And what you just expressed, Adnan, I experienced almost the same thing. I mean,
Right.
you got, it's like what, seek and you will find. It
Hmm.
doesn't say sit on your couch and pray and it'll flop in your lap. Yeah.
Right.
So I get it. My wife and I did the same thing with the house we're living in right now. We looked at about 100 houses at time.
Oh, wow.
Before yeah, because we've set out. We wrote down exactly what we wanted, how we wanted to have it financed, the whole thing. So when I saw it, I knew right there, this is it. This is the house. And within about less than a week, we ended up getting it. So, but when you're in that groove, when you're in that harmony, it's amazing how things will just fall into place. They'll start coming together for you. And one of the things I did while we were looking for the house, I told her, you know, well, my wife too, but I was doing some dowsing, and I said, look, Divine, you know, if this isn't the house for us, then make it very succinct to stop us from getting it. Do not let this deal go through. Do not block it. Do whatever you have to, but do not let this deal go through. And it was just like putting grease on a slide, man. We just kept moving forward faster and faster with the deal. And it was truly from the heart. I truly meant it. As much as we wanted this house, we thought it was perfect, but if it was not what the divine wanted us to be, boom, we were willing to move on after looking at 100 houses. Oh gosh. And it turned out. So there's one other thing I wanted to mention about dowsing. And I learned this from, I think it was Walt Woods. There's also a guy named Raymond Grace. And there's also Ellie Drew. These are three people that really gave me a good guidance in connecting with that divinity within. And this was when we moved into this house, I set up and put a filter on the house that any food, beverage, or any substance that would come in contact with our physical body, that it would be purified and that it would be blessed and that it would nourish our bodies and it would be like healing to us. And that this should stay in effect for as long as this house would exist. And it's amazing. We get people to come over here and they go, wow, Michael, it just feels really great over here. You know, it's like there's like a good energy about us. And I that's what I give the credit to is what the divine is doing. It's blessing the environment. But the key was I was working with my friend Faith for a while on this, and we were always doing the blessing of the food and the blessing of the home and all this, but we weren't getting the kind of results we wanted. And we both came up with this about the same time. It's like, you know, we left the step out, which was you must have it purified first. Purify whatever the substance is, and then have it blessed, because it takes out all the noxic energies or noxic substance that's in it, removes it or neutralizes it, and then enhances the beneficial energies in there. And I've experienced that same thing with your automobile, your bank account, your job, the people at your job. You can do this same thing wherever you are. You can actually, one of the things that I have done is I've put up a 500-foot spherical energy field around the house, around ourselves, and around our property. So wherever we go, everything and everyone within that sphere is safe. And it's amazing how we go out in public and people are just so friendly and nice, and you know, it's just a nice energy that we get to bring with us wherever we go. And when I was dowsing this as I was requesting this to be done, and it was just giving me this like, yeah, you know, this high five on this. So anybody can do this. You don't have to be a dowser. Just ask the divine to do this, and that it should be continually in effect for as long as it's necessary and appropriate to do so.
Great. Thank you for explaining that. Well, Michael, can I ask you one more question from Silky B? And I think we got it pretty
Okay.
good covered because there's James that also wanted to come through. And, of course, if you have anything else to share, please let me know. But if it's okay with you, I will also would
Uh-huh.
like to extend the floor to James too. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So Silky B is asking, what is the evil trade-off for alien technology? Reptilians?
The evil trade-off.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's like anything in the universe. There's good and evil everywhere. Um, there's good reptilians and there's evil reptilians. Um, it's just a matter right now, from what my dowsing is, we're up to our eyebrows here on Earth in the evil ones, but there are good beings who are. I guess you would say the best way to describe it is that they are putting out good intentions, our prayers towards us as mankind to lift ourselves out of this form of slavery that we've all been put in. And I would say just be aware that we'll call them the evil reptilians or the evil aliens are there, but just be aware that it's there. It's like walking through the woods and knowing that maybe there's wolves or bears in the woods, but you're not going to shut your life down because they're there. You're going to act cautiously, but when you are confronted, stand on your authority.
Mm. Okay. Well, Michael, thank you very much again. I really, really appreciate it. I always love having you on. I'm sorry it took a year for for you come back, but yeah, just like it's a perfect example. The same way that you and I have stories and everyone else out there, people just need to share them more and make that to be that new normal, as they call it. To just to realize that this weird thing going on in life is happening for everybody, and why kind of hide it when you can share it, because you never know who else had experiences like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's been a real roller coaster ride since that night at the drive-in, because that's when things really began to change in my life, and it still is, and I'm thankful for it.
Right.
A friend of mine, he told me I had explained this to him, that what I saw at the drive-in, and he said more than likely what these ships were doing in the sky, they were using a three-dimensional alphabet, and they were communicating to your subconscious, and it triggered you and probably a lot of other people. And when he said that, it was like, wow, it was just something inside of me said, yeah, Gene was right on that. They were using a three-dimensional alphabet in the sky, and they were triggering us to wake up.
Right.
And that's the good guys.
Right. All right. Well, Michael, thanks again. Do you have any final words, closing words you'd like to leave us with?
Well, if anybody's interested in learning more about dowsing, I was telling you about Walt. Just do a search for Walt Woods and his book called A Letter to Robin. Another one is Raymond Grace, which is RaymonGrace.com. Raymond Grace. Raymond's he's a really interesting character. I really like Raymond. He's got some really good stories about exercising entities out of homes and stuff that are, I guess you would call them hauntings. And then Ellie Drew. Ellie Drew she does douse, but her thing is about clearing out these connections that we have with other people through maybe past life or this life, where you've had experiences with somebody that was maybe traumatic and things like that, and releasing these connections so it frees you up. So those were three people that I've learned a lot from, and it's helped me a great deal, and I hope you guys check it out.
All right. Well, Michael, great to talk to you again. Thank you. And we'll chat. You have your number, and
Okay.
I gotta call you one of these days. I'm sorry I haven't done it as much.
Uh, yeah, well, I look forward to it, Adnan.
All right. Thank you again.
It
You
was
take
great
care
being
and tell
on UFO Hub.
anytime. Please tell everyone that knows me that I said hi.
Okay, will do.
Okay. All right. You take care.
Bye bye.
All right. So that was Michael. Thank you, Michael, very much. James, I would like to get to you next. If you could, I'm going to unmute you in a second, but I just want to get to a question by Michelle. She just said, "Hi, Adnan. I have a question for you. If you get the time, I had a man say hello to me while I was asleep a few days ago. He had a deep voice. It had happened once before a year or so ago. And then she said, I replied to him. Um, I replied to him. I guess I was saying in my head, but he didn't say anymore. Should I have spoken out loud? Thank you. Well, Michelle, when it comes to these kind of things, I've had these extra auditory experiences several times myself, and the key anytime something like that happens is to always just don't be afraid, first of all, right? Because whatever happens, it's like you have to be in that neutral state of mind to truly understand something. Because if you immediately jump to that this is a threat, this is something I need to fear, I need to shut this out, then of course it will be something that you are kind of filtering through that fearful lens. And so the point is, yeah, if you also filter it through the nice lens, yada yada yada, then what if it was something really that you need to be paying attention to or be aware of or whatnot. What I'm trying to say generally is that 99% of the time there's misunderstandings about why a communication happened. By normal standards, doctors and all of that, they're like, oh, yep, that's time for, medication and, you need to see a doctor, but having had experiences that I had and many other people that I've talked to and just that I've come across in my life, it's not an uncommon thing. What the specific purpose of that is, it comes down to each individual person. And it's up to you to find that out, but you only will be able to do that if you are not fearful and you keep persisting to kind of be open to it to happen again. Because before you know it, more and more explanations or more things will happen. They'll explain the point or why that was happening. You will understand why, as you mentioned, you only you responded but nothing was said. And no, you didn't have to say it out loud, because a lot of times we're talking about these interdimensional communications. It's not about the auditory anyway. It's more about your consciousness, your awareness, just basically touching base back with whatever just said hello to you. And also a lot of times, because of these different vibrations, we're, as human beings, we're on one level. There's these different weird things that exist on all these different levels and dimensions. They have all their different vibrations. Something coming through from these different things can't sound very deep, because it's almost like basically, if we were using a physical example, and I've used that, I explained this a while back on UFO Hub too. It's basically kind of like you being underwater and somebody talking to you. You can kind of make out that they're trying to talk to you, but it's muffled and weird, not at all clear sounding like it is when you're above water. And a lot of these interdimensional things happen that way, to where it may have sounded deeper, not because it's actually a deep voice, but because just how you translated what was coming through. So if this truly happened to you in the way you said it happened, that's the only advice I can give to you now, and just to be vigilant and basically just keep at it, to just be open when it happens and stay open-minded, no matter how much fear wants to kick in. Okay, I'm really sorry, James. You waited long enough. I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to unmute. Let's see here. Unmute you on my end. If you can unmute yourself on yours, and you should be able to speak to me.
Hello.
Hey, James. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Thanks for signing up and Because I know you were still in chat, so you installed it quick enough to still join tonight.
Right, right. No, yeah, man. Because I've obviously, I guess I've subscribed and I've seen your videos before, but this is the first time I've ever really gone on a live chat like this.
Oh, well, thank you.
But no, thank you, man. No, it's very interesting because to be honest, for me, I've just been going through some of the most I'd say struggling parts of my life recently when it comes to everything. To be honest, so I was in America. So I'm from England originally, born in England. Obviously, I'm from England. Don't know if you can tell from my accent, but so my parents we moved. Well, my dad had, we had a fishing, so pretty much we had a fish and chip shop in England. My dad done fish and chips all his life. I'm just saying this is as sort of getting a bit of a basis for who I am. So, but then my dad done he had a fish and chip shop for 20 years, if not a bit longer, going on 25 years, and he wanted to make a change, and before that in 2009 he bought a house in America. So going forward, he sold it during the pandemic, around the pandemic time. But we ended up moving to Florida. I actually moved there before my mum and dad did. I met a beautiful lady called Adriana. I had 2 kids, and yeah, everything was going good, you know. And then after the pandemic, because I managed to get to Florida just before they shut the airports down and that. So this was like March 2020. Because like you say, when it comes to feeling, I had a feeling, you know what I mean? Things were heating up with the whole corona. And I had, you know what I mean? I had a feeling, I knew I had to get over there and be with Adriana because she was pregnant with my first baby, Amelia. And I knew I had to get there and be there before anything drastic happened. And it turned out, you know what I mean, it did get drastic. They stopped flights. But anyway, so I've been living in America for the last 3 years, and my parents are still there. My dad and my mum and my little brother have all got visas. They started off with a 5-year visa, and then they got a 10-year visa. But I was over 21, so I couldn't get. I wasn't. I could. I had to. I couldn't get a visa off my through my mum and dad. You know, because I was too old. You know, after
Mhm.
21, you have to do your own thing and try. You can't. Pretty much, my little brother got a visa automatically because he was under 18, and so I was there. I was there before they got there. Then they come over like a year later, and it was all good. I had my first baby, Amelia, my baby girl, and then
Congratulations.
Adriana ended up getting pregnant again, and we had Luca, and yeah, you know what I mean. I thought, oh, you know, everything was good. Everything in when it on paper, you know what I mean. It would seem everything was great, you know, but I sit.
Are you still there? James, can you hear me? You have dropped off. If you could try getting back to me. You're unmuted on my end, and I don't know what happened on yours. Okay, I'm gonna keep this open. I'm not sure if he's gonna come back. Nope. Okay. Yeah, no, he has dropped off altogether. I don't know if he's gonna log back in. So James, if you can see me or still hear me, it's open for you. So when you log back in, please continue your story. All right. So let's see. what we have here. Hazel, welcome. Good to see you. It's been a long time. I guess obviously because I haven't been online for a long time. I've only been back for a few months now. But welcome to everyone else that's here in chat today, and I hope you all enjoying yourselves and listening. Um, okay, James is back again. Let me see here. Let me unmute him. James, unmute yourself on your end and go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know, but I'm glad you're back.
Okay, cool. Sorry, where was I? Well, I don't. Sorry, where I don't know
You said
where I got
second,
cut.
no, second baby that you had your first.
Okay, then yeah. So we had Luca, and so pretty much I was there for 3 years, and unfortunately, just recently, so I got pulled over for a DUI when I was in Florida, and so it was a typical situation of I went out, so I was oh. Anyways, I was out already. I went out to I went to the liquor store, and I was also at the gambling. I was at the arcade next door. I won a little bit of money, and I come home. But the reason I went out was to get milk, like I was saying earlier. Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, didn't grow up quick enough. So pretty much, so I was in America for 3 years, and unfortunately, I got pulled over for a DUI because I came back home and I forgot to get milk. And my fiance was like, "Well, where's the milk?" I was like, "Oh shit! I'll go back out and get it." And when I went back out, I got pulled over, and I was drunk, and yeah, so that I got arrested for DUI. I paid my bail, but I overstayed. I overstayed, and I didn't get married quick enough. Well, I wanted to get married, but even if I was married, I don't know if that would have affected my situation as well. It may have helped, but either way, I think even if I had a green card, they still may have pretty much. I ended up getting kicked out of the country. Unfortunately, I ended up getting deported from America, and my and um I was in a I was in Broward Transitional Center in Miami for almost 2 months, and you know what I mean. It made me. It made me. Well, pretty much. It's like I said. It's been one of the. It was one of the toughest times of my life. I
Yeah.
um. I'm not a bad person. You know what I mean. You know. I just unfortunately I do like I do like to drink. I do like, and I do, and I just wish I could have got my shit together soon. I wish I could have sorted it out sooner. Sorry, I'm not know if I'm allowed to swear or not. I'm trying
No,
not
you
to, and
can.
I won't.
James, yeah. James,
Okay,
just real
cool.
quick, yeah, I'm really sorry for all the troubles and the difficulties you've had. Was there a story that you wanted to share that's supernatural in nature?
Yeah, so I've been through I've had many supernaturals experiences. So this is what I'm saying. So even before So so when I first met Adriana, I prayed to God when I was there. I prayed this was going back a few years back before I met her. I was going through pretty much I prayed to God that I'd meet someone. I prayed as hard as I could, and I met Adriana that night. The night I prayed, I met her, and we had a beautiful family. And what I'm trying to say is that, like mate was saying on the last call, I guess, and I heard, I listened to a lot of Coast to Coast AM and a lot of stuff, but we're all supposed to experience all sorts of situations in life, whether they're negative or positive, you know. And I guess this the when it comes down to going through trauma or difficult situations, out of that you realize and you learn. You know what I mean? At that, you learn to be more compassionate, and you gain from that as well. You know, you can
Right.
gain from the situation. And I'm obviously, I'm gonna fly my future, my wife to be and my kids over to England, and we're gonna be together. You know, but through situations you become, you know what I mean, you become stronger, you learn we're supposed to learn these experiences, like, we're supposed to go through things to learn, you know what I'm saying, because that's what maybe what we decide, that's why we come here, you know, to experience these things, and to go through hardship, because you know it's like the typical saying, like, you don't know, like, you don't know what you got until it's gone, and also, but you don't know without difficult times, then you don't know when things are good, you know, and
Right.
things often, you know what I mean. Really, I mean, if you can make things happen, you know, you can make things happen, you can make things
Right.
happen, but
Well,
also we're
James,
supposed to experience.
right. James, I'm really sorry. Can you just tell me your story now? I'm just gonna, otherwise I'm gonna have to let you go. I'm really sorry for the difficulties you've been going through, but I was hoping you might then, whole reason for the open lines is for you to share some other supernatural stories you've had, like either alien ghosts or whatnot related.
Okay, well, no, I have. I mean, I felt like I see. Well, I have. I saw a UFO. I've had a UFO literally following me before. Before, when I was younger, I've had a UFO following me. Literally, I know it sounds crazy, but on the way to Tesco, like, literally, there was a. He was above my head. Is a bright orb in the sky, and and yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I've had a few experiences, but no, that's fine. If you want to let me go, that's fine. I understand.
Okay. All
I
right. Well,
understand.
James, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. I hope everything works out for you and you get to see your daughters
And my son. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very
and your
much.
son. Yes. Do you take care? Okay, thank you, James. So, yeah, I'll be on for a little bit longer. If any of you would like to call in to share some of your UFO or supernatural stories, please do so now. If there's any questions that are coming through the chat, or you would like to submit to chat, please do so now as well, and we can, whichever one comes first, either a person calling in or somebody asking some questions. But yeah, I'm glad most of you were able to join. Usually I have a guest on, but I haven't had open lines in a while, so I figured today would be a good time. And there's there's a guest I've been trying to get, and I will try to get them for next Wednesday at 7 p.m. They're very well known in the UFO field. They've been around and sharing their stories and been kind of in the UFO circuit since, I think it was, well, since the 90s, maybe a little sooner. And it's more of a they have more of a Andromedan connection. And so anyway, I won't speak much more about that because I want to make sure I get them first, and then you'll get to hear more from them. And of course, as always, you'll be able to ask them questions when they're on during the Q&A segment, or submit your questions in the chat rooms, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. Okay, who else do we have here? So earlier today, I saw Silky B and I asked a question. And Michelle, welcome as well. M. Bolliocini, welcome. And of course, Hazel. I haven't seen Hazel in quite a while, but I'm glad you're able to make it tonight with whatever the health problems are. I'm glad you're here. And I haven't met you personally, but over all those times when I started the live stream, you've been joining some of these live open lines, and so I kind of got to know you that way. Welcome, Edward, as well. And it looks like you have a question also. Says, what do you think? What do you think is going on in Skinwalker Ranch? Um, well, That's a subject I personally have not spent too much time on because um, it's there's it almost seems like every other person that I know goes down there, has their experiences. They write about it, they tell about it, record whatever they can. There's shows on that, and so um, I don't know. I personally have not been there. Maybe one of these days I'll see if I can be within the vicinity of it. I think you can only get to that property if you have special access or permission to be on that property, because otherwise you're trespassing. And so I'm sorry I can't tell you much there. It's all the stories I've heard, and especially at the just recent Ozark Mountain UFO conference, Katie Page, one of the Colorado director for MUFON for the state of Colorado. She basically did some research there and had some experiences, and she shared some very interesting stories. And there's something that apparently is coming out with her and History Channel and whatever was happening there. So that might be something you want to check out. But I'm sorry I can't tell you much more than that. Okay. Edward says, what's the number to call in? I don't have a number actually, because I use Telegram group that's live right now, and people can listen in voice only on Telegram. So if you install Telegram, either on your computer or on your phone, and you can then find the group. The link for the UFO Hub Telegram group is in the description below, and you can join the group. You'll see there's a voice chat going on right now, and that's the way you can talk to me. So when you get into the room, I'll see that you're there. Raise your hand, and that way I know you want to speak to me. Michelle asks, do you still have contact? Can you tell me more about getting them to talk to you? I have been trying for a while. Well, not very often, because it's actually, I would even go as far as very rare now, because when I concluded what I concluded in Robertsville, Missouri, in 2015, it was kind of a natural, I guess, just a natural down, not the end, but just, basically just kind of a downslope of whatever I was experiencing. It was such a packed 5 years of just weirdest, craziest shit that can ever possibly happen. And so, and then obviously out of that UFO Hub came about, so then my whole point was, with that last download that I received, was to just kind of then use all my skills that I've learned throughout my life, dealing with technology, cameras, computers, all these things, doing graphic design, all my abilities to just make UFO Hub happen. So I don't need any kind of outside help. Everything I need, I can just figure out on my own. If I need to figure out what mic to use, I do my own research and figure it out, computers and whatever else was needed. So naturally then it kind of started me doing this, because I got what I needed to get out of it. I don't know what percentage to give you, most of you out there. I try to share as much as I can, but even that is probably still maybe 40% of all the experiences, because some things are very directed towards me. It was a lot of resolving of relationships and issues and all these other things that just had to be resolved, because it's talking about energy. It's energy that's in the way of you progressing, spiritually. And so it had to be addressed. I had to go through all that. So necessarily telling stories about that is kind of boring, because it's very subjective, very, very personal in that sense. I don't mind sharing it, but just most people probably just fall asleep. I just kind of cover these things that I like to think that people generally would like to know, and all the experiences that I had. That's why I share. But occasionally, I would, especially where I live here, obviously, as Michael was saying earlier, it was very dark in Robertsville. It's still a very similar area, basically in the woods now. Instead of in the woods in Missouri, I'm now in the woods in Arkansas. And so I would walk out and needing to go somewhere, whether it's at night or at different times of day, and I would see a specific, very close up orb or anything would come into view, and then slowly go away and just kind of disappear. And I would stop, feed these little weird sensations that, oh, okay, they're there, whoever they are, for whatever reason. I've stopped asking questions regarding that because whatever I need to know, my subconscious already got it. And if there's more for me to know consciously, I would have been, given those answers right there or later on. So I just usually just it's quite the opposite. In the very beginning, it was like my whole world was stopped. I would focus on that. Now I just like, oh, okay, it happened, move on, and whatever needs to come out of that will eventually happen. So anyway, to answer your question, not as often, very rare now, but it's not the end. It's obviously, if you, I don't know if you heard some stories now, it's kind of involving my children, more of the middle child, and so on. So we've been kind of dealing with that, and just kind of being there for him for whatever is happening there. And so thankfully everything is just fine. He's adjusted very well, but it's one of these weird things that when you live this weird life and it's not a normal thing for an average outside person over there, all we have is each other, and close friends and family to kind of deal with whatever we're dealing with, because it's not like the government is going to step in, because just recently they only opened up an office to keep track of UAPs or UFOs, whatever they want to call them. But even then, that's absolutely really nothing compared to what's really been happening to people. And so at the end of the day, all we have is ourselves to solve whatever problems. I can't go to anybody. I might ask a friend for an opinion, but at the end of the day, I have to keep at it and keep at it until an answer comes to me, or I'm given an answer or an understanding about what is happening. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. And for those that are wanting to submit a question, so I know that whether or not it's directly towards me, please include 3 asterisks before you submit the question, so I know it's actually for me. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume you guys are chatting in the rooms. And then, of course, if you still would like to talk to me over Telegram, as I mentioned, install Telegram on your phone or computer. Join the group that's going on live now, the voice chat, and then you'll be able to speak to me directly. Okay, Ascension Bar, welcome. Good to see you. Okay, it seems like most of the chatter was happening while I was talking to Michael, so it's just been happening between all of y'all. And let's see here. For those who are just listening on podcasts, I'm sorry for these long silences of sometimes dead air. That's because I'm just looking through to see if there's any other questions or anyone else wanting to chat. Okay. Well, I guess I'll leave it at that. Most of you, I guess there's no one else. There's some people listening, but not necessarily wanting to join and talk to me. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you all very much for joining me today, and join me next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. I should actually have a guest on. So there will be most likely a segment for Q&A. So if you have a question for them, please use that opportunity to actually ask them whatever it is that you would like to ask. Because if you read their books, or there's something that interests you about their specific work, that would be an opportunity where you can do that. I'm not saying that there aren't any other shows or platforms out there that do that, but the whole point is that all of these experiences are ours to be had. All the research we all do is for our own benefit as individuals and as a society. So the more you can find out, the more you can ask directly, the better. I mean, I can ask the question, I might hit the spot on and ask exactly what you wanted to know, but sometimes I don't know. So I hope you take that opportunity. So thank you all very much. Have a good evening wherever you all are, and tune in next week, Wednesday at 7. All right. Take care.